Admiral Vextar stood before the massive viewing screen in his command center, watching the empty space where human ships should have appeared. His four eyes narrowed as he checked the readings again. The deadline had passed 3 hours ago. Earth's leaders had exactly 48 hours to respond to the Galactic Coalition's final demand for surrender. The Coalition had given humanity a simple choice: submit to integration into their empire or face complete destruction. It was the same offer they had made to 47 other species across the galaxy. Most had surrendered immediately after seeing recordings of Coalition fleet battles. A few had tried to fight. None had lasted more than a day. "Sir, we have something on long-range sensors," reported his tactical officer, Rendok, the younger. Alien's voice carried confusion. "It's small." Vexitar turned toward the sensor station. "Show me." The main screen shifted to display a single dot moving through space toward their position. The computer identified it as a human vessel, but the readings made no sense. It was roughly the size of a Coalition patrol ship, nothing more. "Run the scan again," Vextar ordered. "There must be a cloaked fleet behind it." Rendok worked frantically at his controls. "Sir, I'm detecting no other ships. No energy signatures, no gravitational distortions. It's just one ship." The bridge fell silent. 500 Coalition warships floated in formation around the fortress world of Kepler 442b, the most powerful fleet ever assembled. They had prepared for a massive battle against humanity's forces. Instead, a single small vessel approached them like a lost tourist. "This has to be a trick," muttered Fleet Commander Kel Nash from his position near the weapons console. "No species sends one ship against an armada. It's impossible." Vextar studied the approaching vessel on his screen. Human ships were supposed to be primitive things, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Intelligence reports suggested they had only recently developed basic energy weapons. Yet this ship moved with surprising smoothness through space, its course perfectly straight and confident. "Open a communication channel," Vextar commanded. "Let's see what these humans think they're doing." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. The creature appeared young by Coalition standards, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with some kind of insignia on the collar. "This is Captain Lee Dong-min of the Earth vessel Soul's Dawn," the human said in surprisingly clear galactic standard. "We received your message and have come to discuss your terms." Vextar leaned forward. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Coalition. You were ordered to bring your fleet for surrender. Where are your other ships?" "This is our response," Captain Lee replied calmly. "We're here to talk." "Talk?" Kel Nash stepped into view of the communication pickup. "You send one tiny ship against 500 warships and want to talk? Are all humans insane?" The human captain's expression didn't change. "We believe peaceful solutions are always preferable to violence. Perhaps we can find a way to avoid unnecessary conflict." Laughter rippled across the Coalition bridge. Several officers made jokes in their native languages about human stupidity. Vextar held up a hand for silence. "Captain Lee," he said, "let me explain something to you. Your species has two choices: surrender immediately, or watch your homeworld burn. There are no other options." "I understand your position," Lee responded, "but we hoped you might reconsider after seeing what we have to offer." "Offer?" Vextar's voice rose. "You're in no position to offer anything. You have one ship. We have 500. Do you understand mathematics?" "We do," Lee said simply. "We also understand that numbers aren't everything." On the Soul's Dawn, Captain Lee Dong-min ended the communication and turned to his small crew. The bridge was cramped compared to Coalition standards, but every surface showed signs of advanced technology that looked nothing like the primitive equipment in Coalition intelligence reports. "Well, that went about as expected," said Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin from her station near the back of the bridge. She was a small woman with quick hands that never stopped moving across her control panels. "They think we're crazy." "Are we crazy?" asked Pilot Officer Choi Min-ho. He was the youngest member of the crew, barely out of the academy, but his fingers danced across the navigation controls like he was born to fly. "I mean, it is just us against all of them." Tactical analysis? Lee asked, looking toward Kim Jae-ho at the weapons station. Kim studied his displays with the careful attention of someone who had spent years in Earth's defense forces. 500 ships, mostly cruiser and battleship class. Standard coalition. Formation. Energy shields, plasma weapons, kinetic missiles, nothing we haven't seen before. Their communication encryption is at least 50 years old. Added communications specialist Yoon Da-mi from her position near the front of the bridge. She spoke 17 different alien languages and could crack most military codes in her sleep. I've been listening to their internal chatter. They're completely confident this will be easy. Lee nodded slowly. Soo-jin, how are our systems? All green across the board, Park replied cheerfully. The mining array is running at optimal efficiency. Gravitational manipulation system is stable. Defensive screens are ready for deployment. Oh, and I've been making some minor adjustments to our sensor signature. What kind of adjustments? Minho asked. Park grinned. The kind that make us look like a harmless exploration vessel instead of what we actually are. Through the viewing port, they could see the coalition fleet growing larger as they approached. Hundreds of ships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. Each one was designed for destruction, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Incoming transmission, Da-mi announced. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on their screen again. Captain Lee, you have exactly 10 minutes to surrender your vessel and prepare for boarding. This is your final warning. Admiral, Lee replied calmly, we respectfully request permission to demonstrate something before you make any final decisions. Demonstrate what? A sample of human technology. We think it might change your perspective on this situation. Vextar paused, clearly curious despite himself. What kind of technology? Nothing threatening, Lee assured him. Just something that might help you understand why we're not afraid. You have 5 minutes, Vextar said finally. Then we board your ship and end this charade. The communication ended and Lee turned to his crew. Everyone ready? Sir? Minho said quietly. Are we really going to do this? Lee looked out at the massive fleet surrounding them. 500 ships filled with aliens who thought humans were weak and primitive. They had no idea what was coming. We're going to show them exactly what one human ship can do, he said. Captain Lee Dong-min watched the coalition fleet through his ship's viewing port. The alien vessels hung in space like sleeping giants, their dark hulls reflecting the light from the distant star. Each ship was at least 3 times larger than the Sol's Dawn, and there were hundreds of them. Beginning standard approach procedures, announced Pilot Officer Choi Min-ho from his station. His hands moved smoothly across the controls, adjusting their course toward the coalition command station. They're sending escort ships to meet us. How many? Asked Kim Jae-ho, his eyes focused on the tactical display. 3 cruisers. They're taking positions around us in a standard capture formation. Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin looked up from her console. They really think we're going to surrender, don't they? Their communications suggest they're treating this as routine, said Yoon Da-mi, listening through her headset to coalition radio chatter. The escort captains are actually complaining about having to waste time on such a simple job. Lee smiled slightly. What else are they saying? Da-mi adjusted her controls, filtering through different channels. Admiral Vextar is already preparing. Interrogation chambers. They expect to break human resistance within hours. Standard coalition procedure, apparently. And their fleet positions, spread out in a defensive formation around the fortress world. They're not expecting trouble. Da-mi paused, tilting her head as she listened to something new. Wait, this is interesting. What is it? Lee asked. They're using encryption protocols that are at least 50 years old. We cracked these codes months ago during our intelligence gathering. She looked up with excitement. Captain, I can hear everything they're saying to each other. Kim studied his tactical display more carefully. If we can intercept their communications, we know exactly what they're planning before they do it. That's a significant advantage, Lee agreed. Soo-jin, how are our systems running? Park checked her displays with the quick efficiency of someone who knew every circuit in the ship. All systems green. The gravitational manipulation array is running smoothly. Defensive screens are ready for deployment. Mining lasers are charged and calibrated. Mining lasers? Minho asked. Are we really calling them that? That's what they are, Park said innocently. Designed for asteroid mining and deep space construction. The fact that they can cut through coalition armor like paper is just a happy coincidence. Through the communication system, Admiral Vexitar's voice filled the bridge. Human vessel Souls Dawn, you will maintain current course and speed. Any deviation will be considered a hostile act. Understood, Admiral, Lee replied calmly. We appreciate the escort. These humans are either very brave or very stupid, muttered one of the escort ship captains over the open channel. The coalition officer obviously didn't realize the humans could understand him. I vote for stupid, replied another captain. Look at that ship, it's barely armed. Our patrol ships have more weapons. Dami grinned as she translated the conversation for her crewmates. They think we're harmless. Good, said Lee. Let them keep thinking that. The Souls Dawn moved smoothly through space, following the exact course the coalition had specified. To outside observers, it looked like a simple cargo vessel. Unremarkable and non-threatening, the alien escort ships flew in perfect formation around them, their weapons powered but not actively targeting. Captain, Kim said quietly, I'm detecting something unusual about their shield frequencies. What kind of unusual? They're using a rotating modulation pattern, probably designed to prevent enemy weapons from locking onto a single frequency. Kim paused, studying his readings. But the rotation follows a mathematical sequence, very predictable. Predictable how? If you know the base algorithm, you can calculate exactly what frequency their shields will be using at any given moment. Kim looked up with a slight smile. It's actually quite clever unless someone has been studying coalition technology for decades. Lee nodded. And we have been. Incoming transmission from the command station, Dami announced. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Vextar in his command center. Behind him, dozens of coalition officers worked at their stations, preparing for what they clearly expected to be a routine prisoner transfer. Captain Lee, Vextar said, you mentioned wanting to demonstrate human technology. You have permission to approach within weapons range of our command station. Thank you, Admiral. We appreciate your trust. This isn't trust, Vextar replied coldly. This is confidence. Your one ship poses no threat to our defenses. Of course not, Lee agreed. We just want to show you something that might help us find a peaceful solution. Fleet Commander Kel Nash appeared beside the Admiral. What exactly do you plan to demonstrate? A sample of human engineering, something we use in our daily work. Mining equipment, I suppose? Kel Nash's voice carried obvious contempt. We've seen your primitive technology reports. Something like that, Lee said. The communication ended, and the Souls Dawn continued its approach toward the massive command station. The structure was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapon arrays and shield generators. Thousands of coalition personnel worked inside, completely confident in their invulnerability. Range to target? Lee asked. 2,000 kilometers, and closing, Minho reported. The escort ships are maintaining formation. Sujin, prepare the mining laser. Lowest power setting. Sir, are you sure about lowest power? Park asked. Even at minimum settings, it's going to surprise them. That's the idea. We want to get their attention without causing any real damage. Park's hands danced across her controls. Mining laser. Ready. Power output set to 0.3% maximum. 0.3%? Kim whistled softly. That's barely a flashlight by our standards. It's about to become the most powerful weapon these aliens have ever seen, Lee replied. Captain, Dami said urgently, I'm picking up coalition communications. Admiral Vextar is asking his science teams what kind of equipment a human ship might carry. They're guessing basic plasma cutters or simple energy tools. Let them guess, Lee said. Minho, bring us to demonstration range. 1,000 kilometers, and closing. Through the viewing port, the coalition command station loomed ahead of them. Its shields glowed faintly in the starlight, a protective barrier that had never been breached by enemy fire. The alien officers inside probably felt completely safe, behind their advanced defenses. Range optimal for demonstration, Minho announced. Sujin, you may fire when ready. Park checked her controls one final time. Firing mining laser at 0.3% power. A thin beam of brilliant light shot out from the Soul's dawn toward the command station. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the coalition shield simply parted. The beam passed through their defensive barrier like it wasn't even there, striking the station's hull with surgical precision. Direct hit, Kim reported. No structural damage, no casualties. But what? Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. Sir, the beam carved the coalition's own symbol into their armor plating. Perfect detail, about 50 meters across. Through the communication channel, they could hear shouting from the coalition bridge. Alarms were going off, and officers were frantically checking their shield status. Admiral Vextar's voice came through, shaking with shock. What did you just do to our shields? That was set to 0.3% power, Lee replied calmly. We wanted to avoid any misunderstandings. The coalition command station erupted in chaos. Admiral Vextar stared at his shield status displays, watching impossible readings scroll across the screens. His most advanced defensive systems had been penetrated by what the humans claimed was a mining tool set to minimal power. How is this possible? Fleet Commander Kelnash demanded, rushing to the sensor station. Our shields are rated to stop antimatter bombardment. Sir, the human beam didn't break through our shields, reported the station's chief engineer, his voice trembling. It ignored them completely, like they weren't even there. Vextar activated his communication link to the Soul's dawn. Captain, Lee's calm face appeared on the screen, showing no sign of the shock or fear that should accompany such a demonstration of power. Captain Lee, Vextar began, his voice carefully controlled. That was an impressive display, but surely you don't think one weapon will save you from our entire fleet. Admiral, Lee replied with the same peaceful tone he had maintained throughout. Their conversation, that wasn't a weapon. That was a standard mining laser used for asteroid processing and deep space construction work. Mining laser? Kelnash stepped into view. No mining equipment could penetrate coalition military shields. With respect, Commander, you might want to reconsider your assumptions about human technology. Vextar felt his confidence beginning to crack. The intelligence reports about human capabilities were clearly wrong, but how wrong? Captain, I'm ordering you to surrender your vessel immediately. You've made your point, but you're still outnumbered 500 to 1. I understand your position, Lee said. But before you make any final decisions, perhaps you should see what else our ship can do. On the Soul's Dawn Bridge, Captain Lee ended the communication and turned to his crew. Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin was already making adjustments to their war systems, preparing for what everyone knew was coming next. How are they reacting? Lee asked Communications Specialist Yoon Dami. Complete panic on their command frequencies, she replied, listening to the intercepted coalition chatter. Admiral Vextar is demanding explanations from his science teams. Fleet Commander Kelnash is arguing they should attack immediately, before we demonstrate anything else. And the fleet positions? They're scrambling to battle stations. I count at least 50 ships moving to surround us. Tactical Officer Kim Jae-ho studied his displays. Make that 60 ships now. They're trying to box us in with overlapping fire. Zones? Minho, Lee said to his pilot, how does that make you feel? Pilot Officer Choi Minho grinned, his hands already moving to the navigation controls. Like someone just challenged me to a game I've been playing since I was 12. Sujin, are we ready for evasive maneuvers? All systems green, Park replied cheerfully. Gravitational manipulation array is running at full efficiency. I've also made some minor modifications to our sensor signature. What kind of modifications? The odd kind that will make their targeting computers very confused. Through the viewing port, they could see coalition ships moving into attack formation. The massive vessels maneuvered with surprising grace for their size, but to human eyes trained. On Earth's advanced flight systems, they moved like ancient sailing ships in a hurricane. Incoming transmission, Dami announced. Admiral Vextar appeared on screen again, flanked by several other Coalition officers. His confidence was clearly shaken, but his voice remained firm. Captain Lee, you have exactly 60 seconds to surrender. Your vessel. After that, we will consider you a hostile threat and respond accordingly. Admiral, we really hoped it wouldn't come to this, Lee replied sadly. We prefer peaceful solutions. Then surrender. I'm afraid that's not an option. However, we're prepared to demonstrate why continued hostilities would be unproductive. You're one ship against 60 of our finest warships, Kel Nash snarled. Your laser trick won't save you from concentrated firepower. Perhaps not, Lee agreed. But you might want to watch carefully. This could be educational. The communication ended. On the Coalition command station, Vextar turned to his tactical officer. All ships, commence firing. Target the human vessel. Maximum firepower. 60 Coalition warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, kinetic missiles, and antimatter torpedoes streaked through space toward the Soul's dawn. It was enough concentrated firepower to destroy a small moon. Evasive maneuvers, Lee ordered calmly. What happened next defied everything the Coalition knew about space combat. The Soul's dawn simply danced. There was no other word for it. The ship moved through the incoming barrage like it was performing a choreographed routine, sliding between energy beams and spinning around missile volleys with impossible grace. How are they moving like that? Kel Nash demanded, watching the tactical display in disbelief. Sir, their acceleration curves don't match any known propulsion system, the tactical officer replied. They're pulling maneuvers that should tear their ship apart. And they're not even using full power, added the sensor operator. Our readings show their engines are barely running above idle. The Soul's dawn continued its elegant dance through the deadly barrage. Pilot Officer Minho's fingers flew across his controls, making micro-adjustments that kept them exactly where they needed to be. To him, dodging Coalition weapons was like avoiding raindrops in a light shower. Sujin, Lee said, I think it's time for the next demonstration. Defensive screens? Park asked. Defensive screens. Chief Engineer Park activated a system that no Coalition scientist had ever imagined. Around the Soul's dawn, space itself began to behave strangely. The incoming weapons fire started to slow down, hanging motionless in space like frozen lightning. What's happening to our weapons? Vextar shouted. Sir, they appear to be stopped, suspended in some kind of stasis field. That's impossible. Energy beams can't be stopped. But the evidence was undeniable. Hundreds of deadly projectiles hung motionless around the human ship like a deadly constellation. Energy beams that should have traveled at light speed were frozen in mid-flight. Missiles hung suspended, their engines still firing but making no forward progress. Kim, Lee said to his tactical officer, analysis? We have approximately 437 projectiles in stasis, Kim reported. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, antimatter torpedoes, and various missile types, all fully armed and ready to detonate. How much of our power are we using to maintain the field? About 12%. Lee nodded and activated his communication link. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on screen, his four eyes wide with shock and something approaching terror. Admiral, Lee said conversationally, you seem to have dropped something. What are you doing to our weapons? Standard defensive procedures. We use gravitational manipulation for asteroid mining and space construction. It also works quite well for catching incoming projectiles. Gravitational manipulation? Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. Basic technology for any species that builds in space, Lee explained patiently. Surely the Coalition has developed similar systems. The silence from the Coalition command station answered that question clearly. I see, Lee continued. Well, since these weapons belong to you, perhaps you'd like them back? With casual precision that terrified every Coalition officer watching, the Soul's dawn began redirecting the accumulated firepower. Every weapon that had been fired at them was carefully aimed at non-critical systems throughout the Coalition. Fleet engine compartments, weapon arrays, shield generators, everything designed to disable rather than destroy. Fire pattern complete, Kim announced. All weapons targeted at propulsion and defensive systems only. No hull breaches, no casualties. Release stasis field, Lee ordered. The frozen weapons burst back into motion, streaking toward their new targets with deadly accuracy. Across the Coalition fleet, ships found their engines failing, their weapons offline, their shields flickering and dying. In less than 30 seconds, 60 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had been rendered helpless by their own weapons. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display, watching ship after ship report disabled systems. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Coalition military, had been defeated by a single human vessel using what they claimed was mining equipment. "Captain Lee," he said finally, his voice hollow with defeat. "What are you?" Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing his crippled fleet. 60 of his finest warships floated helplessly in space, their weapons and engines disabled by their own redirected firepower. The impossible had happened. A single, human ship had defeated a major Coalition battle group without firing a shot in anger. "Status report," he demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. 47 ships report complete engine failure, his tactical officer replied. 31 have lost all primary weapons. 12 are running on backup power only. No casualties, sir, but the entire formation is combat ineffective. Fleet Commander Kelnash slammed his fist against a control panel. "This is humiliation. Admiral, we must escalate. Bring in the heavy battleships. Show these humans what real Coalition power looks like." Vextar considered the option. His fleet contained more than just the 60 ships currently disabled. Hidden in the outer system waited his reserve force, 20 massive Dreadnought-class vessels, each one capable of destroying entire planets. Perhaps it was time to stop playing games. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," he ordered. "Activate the reserve fleet. I want every dreadnought armed and ready for full assault." On the Sol's dawn, communications specialist Yoon Da-mi listened to the Coalition's encrypted transmissions with growing concern. "Captain, they're calling in their heavy units, 20 Dreadnought-class ships moving to attack positions." "Captain," Lee Dongman sighed quietly. "I was hoping it wouldn't come to this." "Sir," asked Pilot Officer Choi Min-ho, "we've shown them restraint. We've demonstrated our capabilities without causing harm. Now they want to escalate." Lee turned to his crew. "Opinions?" Tactical Officer Kim Jae-ho studied his displays. "Dreadnought-class vessels are significantly more powerful than the ships we just disabled. Heavier armor, stronger shields, weapons designed for planetary bombardment. Can we handle them the same way?" Min-ho asked. Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin looked up from her console. "We can handle them just fine. The question is whether we should continue being gentle." "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "Captain, we've been using our equipment at the absolute minimum settings. The mining laser was at 0.3% power. Our gravitational manipulation system is running at 12% capacity. Our defensive screens could protect us from a supernova if we needed them to." Kim nodded in agreement. "We're like adults playing with children, sir. We're so far beyond their technology level that this isn't really a fight." "But they don't understand that," Tammy added. "The Coalition has conquered 47 species using brute force. They don't know how to recognize superior technology when they see it." Through the viewing port, they could see the Coalition dreadnoughts moving into position. Each ship was the size of a small city, bristling with enough weapons to level continents. They approached in perfect formation, their massive hulls reflecting the starlight like dark metal monuments to destruction. "Incoming transmission," Dami announced. Admiral Vextar appeared on screen, flanked by the captains of his dreadnought fleet. His expression had hardened into cold determination. "Captain Lee," he said, "you've made your point. Your technology is more advanced than our intelligence reports suggested. But enough games. Surrender now, or face the full might of the Coalition military." "Admiral," Lee replied sadly, "I truly hoped we could resolve this peacefully. You had your chance for peace. Now you face 20 dreadnoughts, each one armed with planet-killer weapons. Your little tricks won't work against ships this powerful." "I see?" Lee paused, considering his options. "Admiral, before you begin your attack, may I ask you something?" "What?" What do you think you're fighting? Vextar frowned. A human warship, obviously. No, Admiral, that's where you're wrong. Lee's voice remained calm, but something in his tone made every coalition officer listening feel suddenly cold. You're not fighting a warship. Then what are you? We're explorers, Admiral, scientists. The Soul's Dawn is a deep space research vessel designed for mining asteroids and building space stations. What you've seen so far isn't our military technology. The Coalition bridge fell silent. Fleet Commander Kel Nash was the first to speak. If that's not military technology, then what? Our military uses different equipment, Lee explained, patiently. Much different. Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin activated her communication system. Admiral Vextar, this is Chief Engineer Park. I'd like to explain something about human space development. What about it? We don't really distinguish between civilian and military technology the way other species do. When you're building solar systems and terraforming planets, the equipment you need is inherently powerful. Building solar systems? One of the dreadnought captains asked skeptically. Standard procedure, Park continued cheerfully. We've been modifying star systems for industrial and agricultural use for about 60 years now. It requires precise gravitational control, matter, manipulation at the atomic level, and energy systems that can move planets. You're claiming you can move planets? Vexitar demanded. Well, yes. How else do you optimize orbital patterns for maximum efficiency? Park sounded genuinely confused by the question. Surely the Coalition has similar capabilities. The long silence that followed answered that question. Tactical Officer Kim Jae-ho joined the conversation. Admiral, perhaps I should clarify something about our defensive capabilities. Go on. What you've seen so far represents about 5% of this ship's actual potential. We've been careful not to damage your vessels or harm your personnel. 5%? Kelnash's voice cracked slightly. The gravitational manipulation system we use to stop your weapons. We typically use it for moving asteroids and construction materials. Today we used it at minimal power to avoid accidentally crushing your ships. Crushing our ships? Gravitational fields are dangerous if not properly controlled, Kim explained matter-of-factly. A ship caught in an uncontrolled gravity well would be compressed into a sphere about the size of a marble. Admiral Vextar felt his blood growing cold. And your weapons? Mining lasers, Park said. Designed to cut through planetary cores when we need to access rare materials. Very precise, very powerful. The beam that carved your symbol into the command station, that was essentially a flashlight by our standards. How powerful are they at full setting? Vextar asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Full power. They can cut clean through a planet's core without slowing down. The Coalition officers exchanged horrified glances. If the humans were telling the truth, then the Soul's Dawn alone possessed enough firepower to destroy their entire fleet without difficulty. Captain Lee, Vextar said carefully, if your ship has such capabilities, why haven't you used them? Because we're not monsters, Admiral, Lee replied simply. We prefer to build rather than destroy. We'd rather make friends than enemies. But if we continue to attack? Lee's expression grew sad. Then we'll defend ourselves. And Admiral, you really don't want to see what human defensive systems look like when we stop being gentle. As if to emphasize the point, the Soul's Dawn's sensor array suddenly activated. Every Coalition ship in the system was instantly mapped, analyzed, and tagged. Their shield frequencies, weapon capabilities, structural weak points, and crew locations were identified and stored in less than 2 seconds. Complete tactical analysis finished, Kim announced casually. All enemy assets cataloged and prioritized. Enemy assets? Vextar asked weakly. Sorry, that's just standard terminology, Kim replied. We prefer potential friends who haven't realized it yet. The 20 dreadnoughts hung in space, their massive weapons trained on the single human ship. But somehow, despite their overwhelming numerical advantage, every Coalition officer was beginning to understand that they were not the hunters in this situation. They were the prey. The space around Kepler 442b fell into an eerie silence. 20 coalition dreadnoughts faced a single human research vessel, their massive weapons powered and ready. Yet somehow, despite possessing overwhelming firepower advantage, every alien officer felt like they were staring into an abyss. Fleet Commander Kel Nash was the first to break the silence. His voice trembled as he asked the question that would change everything. Captain Lee, if this is what you send for negotiations, what would you send for war? Captain Lee Dongmin's expression grew thoughtful, as if he was considering how to explain something very simple to someone who couldn't quite grasp the concept. Commander, he said finally, you're looking at our diplomatic corps, our mining and construction crews, our scientists and explorers. He paused, letting that sink in. You really don't want to meet our military. Admiral Vextar felt something cold settle in his stomach. Are you saying this ship isn't even military? The Sol's Dawn is registered as a Class C deep space research vessel, explained Chief Engineer Park Soo-jin. We're equipped for asteroid mining, planetary surveys, and basic construction work. Our crew consists of 4 scientists and 1 pilot. Scientists, one of the dreadnought captains whispered. I have degrees in geology and stellar engineering. Park continued cheerfully. Kim studied tactical analysis because it helps with efficient resource allocation. Dami is a xenolinguist who specializes in first contact protocols. Minho graduated from the Civilian Flight Academy. Communications specialist Yoon Dami activated her console. Admiral, I should probably mention something we discovered during our approach to your system. What? Your communication networks have been compromised for approximately 18 months. We've been monitoring coalition military traffic across 3 sectors. That's impossible, Vextar snapped. Our encryption is unbreakable. Sir, with respect, your encryption is about 50 years behind current galactic standards. We've been listening to your internal communications since before you issued your ultimatum to Earth. You've been spying on us? Not spying, Dami corrected gently. Standard intelligence gathering. When a hostile alien empire threatens your homeworld, you try to learn as much as possible about their capabilities. Tactical Officer Kim Jae-ho brought up a holographic display showing the coalition fleet positions. Admiral, your current formation has 17 critical vulnerabilities that could be exploited to disable your entire force within approximately 4 minutes. You're analyzing our defenses while we're talking? Kel Nash demanded. Standard procedure for any encounter with unknown vessels, Kim replied. Though I should mention your tactical formations are quite impressive, very efficient for intimidating less advanced species. Less advanced? Well, yes. The coalition military doctrine appears to be designed around fighting enemies with technology roughly equivalent to your own. It's very effective for that purpose. Admiral, Vexter stared at the human captain on his screen. Captain Lee, exactly how advanced is human technology? That's difficult to quantify, Lee replied. We've been spacefaring for about 200 years now. Most of that time has been spent on peaceful development projects. What kind of projects? Chief Engineer Park took over the explanation. Terraforming mostly. We've modified about 4,000 planetary systems for various purposes. Agricultural worlds, manufacturing centers, research stations, recreational areas. 4,000 systems? Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. Give or take a few hundred. It's hard to keep exact count when you're working on that scale. And your fleet size? Our exploration and construction fleet consists of approximately 12 million vessels similar to the Sol's Dawn, Park said casually. Each one is capable of independent operation for decades at a time. The coalition bridge fell completely silent. 12 million ships, each one apparently capable of defeating their entire battle group single-handedly. Where are they? Kel Nash asked weakly. Throughout the galaxy, communications specialist Dami replied. We've been conducting long-range surveys for potential development sites. Your space contains about 47 human vessels at the moment. 47 ships in our territory? Vextar could barely speak. Research vessels mostly. A few construction, Ships working on some interesting nebula formations in your outer systems. Don't worry, we haven't interfered with any inhabited areas. Pilot Officer Min-ho added. We've also been monitoring the situation with those void hunters that have been attacking your outer colonies. Nasty things. We've been discussing whether to help with that problem. You know about the void hunters? Admiral Vextar felt his world shifting beneath him. The void hunters were a mysterious alien force that had been terrorizing Coalition space for months, destroying entire colonies without warning. We've encountered them before, Kim said. They're attracted to certain types of energy signatures. Your current shield technology actually makes you more visible to them, not less. We could help with that, Park offered. Human defensive systems are invisible to void hunter sensors. We could upgrade your colony's protection if you're interested. Why would you help us? Kelnash demanded. We came here to conquer your species. Because that's what civilized people do, Captain Lee replied simply. We help each other. Admiral Vextar looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. These aliens had come in peace, demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority without causing a single casualty, and were now offering to help protect Coalition worlds from their greatest enemy. Captain Lee, he said slowly, I need to understand something. If humanity possesses this level of technology, why haven't you expanded into our space? Why haven't you conquered us? Admiral, we're not conquerors. We're builders. The galaxy is vast enough for everyone. But surely you must want something. Resources? Territory? Strategic advantage? Lee smiled sadly. Admiral, we can build solar systems from scratch. We can create planets wherever we need them. We can synthesize any material we require. What could we possibly want that we can't make ourselves? Then why are you here? Because 47 species have contacted us asking for help with the Coalition, Dami said quietly. Species you've conquered or threatened. They asked us to intervene. And now? Vextar asked. Now we're hoping to find a better solution. The Coalition could be a valuable partner in galactic development. Your organizational skills are impressive. Your logistics networks are quite efficient. With some technological upgrades, you could help us with several major projects. What kind of projects? Chief Engineer Park's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Well, there's this binary star system about 40 light-years from here that would be perfect for a massive solar collection array. The energy output could power industrial development across 3 sectors. But it requires precise gravitational manipulation to prevent the stars from destabilizing. You want our help with stellar engineering? Kelnash asked incredulously. Why not? The Coalition has excellent project management capabilities. You've successfully coordinated military operations across vast distances. Those same skills would be invaluable for construction projects. Admiral Vextar slowly began to understand what was being offered. Not conquest, not submission, but partnership. The humans weren't interested in ruling the Coalition. They wanted to work with them. What would this partnership involve? He asked carefully. Technology sharing, Lee replied. Educational exchange, joint development projects. We help you solve problems like the Void Hunters, and you help us with large-scale coordination challenges. And if we refuse? Lee's expression grew serious. Then we'll leave you alone. But Admiral, the Void Hunters won't. And there are other threats in this galaxy that make the Void Hunters look like a minor inconvenience. What kind of threats? The kind that require united species to face successfully. The kind that destroyed the ancients who left all those ruins you've been studying. Vextar felt a chill run through him. Coalition archaeologists had found the remains of an incredibly advanced civilization scattered across the galaxy. Something had wiped them out completely, leaving only empty cities and dead worlds. You know what happened to the ancients? We have theories. More importantly, we have defenses. But they only work if civilized species cooperate instead of fighting each other. Admiral Vextar looked at his tactical display one final time. 500 Coalition warships, the pride of their military, had been casually neutralized by a single human research vessel operated by scientists and students. The message was clear. Humanity didn't need to fight the Coalition. They were so far beyond Coalition technology that conflict was meaningless. "Captain Lee," he said finally, "I think it's time for a different kind of conversation, a diplomatic one." "I'd like that very much, Admiral." As the Soul's Dawn led a small diplomatic convoy toward the Coalition command station, Admiral Vextar realized that the galaxy had just become a much larger and more interesting place. Humanity hadn't come as conquerors or destroyers. They had come as teachers, offering to help lift the Coalition to their level of development. All they asked in return was friendship and cooperation. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar was looking forward to a peaceful future.